Greetings, loyal minions. Have you ever come across a red healer and just thought, I have no idea what this thing does. Is it any good? Does it use the right band-aids? Do they have Snoopy on them? Does it know how to give medication correctly? Does it even like to play nurses and doctors? Does it look good in a nurse's uniform? All of these questions just flow through my head. I presume they're flying through yours as well. Stick around, I'm going to answer all of those questions you have about the red healers, especially the ones that look good in nurses' uniform. Welcome back to the SciShow, the #1 ranked YouTube channel for people who enjoy playing nurses and doctors. If that's you, I appreciate you. If you're... no, I won't say that. I've probably given too much away. Apologies for anyone with visions of me in a nurse's uniform right now. Yeah, you might need to seek some medical help for that. On to the best red healers in Empires and Puzzles. So Kat just let me know to give you a spoiler alert. There's a lot of crap. Trying something slightly different with the graphics and images today. Instead of putting up the cards, which can have some incorrect information or outdated information, and also so many things to look at and so much information to take in. I'm just going to throw a picture of the hero up, put in a few of the key reasons I feel they're a good healer. So yeah, things like the Aether talent and the class talents and that sort of thing, whilst they can be useful and nice to know, they're not the reason that the particular healer is in the list, or that, you know, it's not generally the reason that you're going to take one hero over another just because of a talent or a class talent or an Aether talent. So yeah, let me know what you think. Yeah, I've also got going to start off with some 4-bangers, and yeah, hope you enjoy. I'm not even sure I can really call these 4-star bangers. There is, whilst doing some of these videos, you just kind of come across certain things, and it just showed me there are hardly, like, just the amount they've neglected the 4 stars. I think there's probably about 3 or 4 red 4-star healers. So, and one of them, I think we've got Wilbur, who barely does anything, Shale, who does a bit of regenerating. So yeah, the 4-star bangers are Bold Tusk and Nova. Bold Tusk specifically if you have any of the costumes, but we'll have a bit closer look at them both now. Bold Tusk is such an OG Season 1 hero. Due to that, he's been given a few costumes, so I would suggest only using him if you have at least 1 costume just for the bonus. The Toon version is probably the best. But yeah, based on the normal versions, you get anywhere between 33 to 37% heal. One of the costumes does do a boost, which I wouldn't recommend. But yeah, 33 to 37% heal, generally gives an attack boost. And with the Toon version, he gets extra turns of the attack boost and undispellable for fire. So 2 extra turns and undispellable for other fire heroes. And obviously the Toon also resists ailments. So 75% chance to resist ailments, which is absolutely fantastic for a healer. So yeah, in a pinch can be used as a 5-star, depending on your roster, obviously, and who you're going up against. But yeah, it's a pretty decent heal and an attack boost. What more do you need? Well, everything, to be honest. But yeah, I will show you something later on in the video, the difference between a percentage heal and a boost, and just how much extra that can add to the heal. So when you're talking about healers, it's interesting because a lot of the time now, the healers, really how good they are depends on their secondary and third skills as to what else they do. But really, for me, a healer, yes, you like something extra like a cleanse or a dispel or whatever it may be, but a healer's first job is to heal. And if you can get a big additional heal, that can do a lot, even if you can't get rid of the ailments and that sort of stuff, depending on, a lot of it's scenario-based for healers as to whether you need a cleanse or a dispel or something else. So I will show some examples later of the difference between heals and boosts, but we'll move on to our second 4-star banger, Nova. Nova is another 4-star healer I would recommend leveling if you manage to grab. Again, can be used in a pinch if you are lacking 5-star and desperately need a red healer. Runs at average speed, another percentage healer, so 25 to 45% heal. It does depend on how many red tiles are on the board, so that can come into play. She does also do a cleanse, so that's extremely useful. But yeah, generally, at worst, you're going to get 25%. Even if you've got, I think you get 2% extra for each red tile. So if you think there's going to be 3 to 4 generally on the board, you're looking at close to a 35% heal. So quite good. Nothing special. Very, very solid. Heals, cleansers. Again, what more do you need? Also has those annoying red tiles that just give that tiny little bit of extra damage and make the board look all weird. On to my honourable mentions. As you can see on the screen, I've said barely. I have been a bit unimpressed with the red healers, to be honest. I started this series on the yellow ones, and there were so many great yellow healers. Red is just really lacking. There's some good ones in there, but compared to some of the newer yellow and other type healers, there's a lot of older ones. Like the newer heroes are around about 1150 power. A lot of these red healers are still lingering around sort of 850 to 900 when they've had some updates. So I was going to call them dishonourable mentions because I've been extremely disappointed, but I'm trying to be positive. So my honourable mentions are Flip and Ignazio. Flip is running at average speed, giving 45% heal, lets the allies bypass defensive buffs, which is actually quite a good skill, and gives a plus 50 crit. So not too bad. Doesn't really have anything going on in the passives. Nothing exciting there, but he's a solid healer. And Ignazio runs at fast speed, which is always a small bonus. Does heal between 25% up to 55%. So he gets 3% extra for each red shield. He does also cleanse, so very similar to the 4-star Nova, who I mentioned earlier, and also has the plus 50 attack. So can be quite good. Even if you get a few shields on there, if you say there's going to be 3, you're up to 38%, 34%, which isn't terrible, but just with the chance that you're down on that 25%, as a lot of these red healers, is also a little bit outdated. But yeah, so with 25%, not quite making the top 5, Flip is actually quite similar to someone who has made the top 5. Look, there's other red healers out there. I will discuss it a bit more when I get to my top 5, but healers, I briefly mentioned it earlier, I feel it's very scenario based, and there's a discussion between a couple of the top red healers that I've seen a few very interesting and almost heated debates about which ones are better and why. So to me, it's very scenario based. It's very difficult to say one's better than the other, which makes these lists difficult, but everyone loves a list. So produces a nice discussion, which is good. But yeah, I'll get to that a little bit later as to the different scenarios. But there's a few scenarios where some of the healers I haven't even mentioned. You've got people like Razul, Garnett, Timothy can be quite decent. He gives a lot of extra things going on. But Garnett and Grazul, as examples, are basically very fast. So Garnett runs at ninja speed. Grazul very fast. They can give you some quick ailment protection and things along those lines. But their heals are generally quite small. It's very outdated as well. A little bit weaker. So again, there's some others there that may have been close to honourable mentions, but very scenario based. So you can definitely make good use of them. Another one I would like to mention is Guffer, who is slow but has a very big 1400 heal, I believe it is. But it doesn't get activated until 3 or 4 turns after it's cast. So I don't know how that works in Clover War, whether it replaces itself and heals straight away. But yeah, similar to Equalizer War, whether that happens. But very big sort of boost heal, and it has other things going on. It has a taunt. Anyway, I'm rambling. I just feel bad because I'm bagging everyone out, so I thought I'd throw a few other names in there. On to what everyone's been waiting for, the top 5. Let's get ready to break the internet and cause arguments. I will just preface the top 5 with the fact that I personally don't feel a sort of numbered list is the absolute best way of conveying information. I understand there's a purpose to them. I do find them enjoyable as well. but I just feel there are so many different scenarios and different ways you can use heroes, healers as well, that to sort of say there's a difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Uh, you're splitting hairs, and it comes down to personal use, how you use it, which teams you pair it with. So yeah, it's great fun, and I'm happy to do the list. I'm not putting my own list down, obviously. Uh, I know they're extremely useful. People can just have a look. I mean, especially if you're just talking about a top 5, that's fine. Look at it and say, if I've got one of these healers, that's great. I should level them. But keeping in mind, it still comes down to the teams you have, the roster you have, the way you use your heroes, what sort of, some people still don't use healers. They just take a full-on attacking team with a bit of support or something like that. So it comes down to a lot of things. Keep that in mind. But otherwise, let's enjoy and start the discussion. Starting off, I am going with Phonexa. Very similar in some ways to Flip, who I've just given a slightly dishonourable mention to. Has a 42% heal. So again, I'll touch later on the difference between the percentage heals as opposed to boosts, and why those percentage heals can just be such a big advantage in certain scenarios. Also gives attack up, so plus 50% attack. Crit up is plus 30% crit. I think those couple of things are extremely useful, but again, depending on what you need from a healer, a cleanse and or dispel can be more useful. It again depends on the situation, but I think they're underestimated in a way, or undervalued, because with the new multipliers in the war and raid, any attack boost, if you get any sort of cascade happening, the attack hits are just going up and up and up at a lot higher rate with those cascades now. So any sort of attack up boost is going to be great. The crit up is obviously also extremely useful now that the critical hits take off the max health. So that's another little thing that a lot of people don't notice or don't focus on too much, but fantastic little things that can both help you. She gives a mana boost. I'm going to discuss that a little bit more later on as well when we see another hero that's in the top 5. The mana boost is part of the family bonus, where if you pair her with heroes that are just solos in their families, then they get I think it's a 5% bonus mana. So that to me is fantastic straight up. You're not relying on getting her charged to give a mana boost. You're just getting the mana straight up. So it can be extremely useful and just speeds all your heroes up slightly without needing to do anything. On top of that, she resets buffs, so that can be fantastic if you're... I'm just going to take the obvious. If you've got a Taunter on your team, that Taunt's about to run out, you get Phonexa charged up, bang, you've got Taunt again protecting your whole team. So lots of little things. It's hard to say there's a perfect scenario for all of these little bits to add up, but they can all be extremely useful in their own right. And depending on who you're pairing with, can be amazing. On top of that, you have an anti-revive. So there's a passive which gives reduces the chances of revival by 80%. So that is huge. You think of people like, I'm going to say Astrid, who's a great healer in her own right, but then that revive is extremely annoying. Melancholia will be an interesting one. So Melancholia, I think the name is the insanity hero, or the shadow, whatever the hell we want to call them, hero that revives all allies. Yes, it brings them back with insanity, but if that's reviving 4 allies, can be a huge turn in the battle. Just by having Phonexa in the team, you're removing that chance by up to by 80%. So, you might only end up with 1 reviving rather than 4. So a lot of little skills that just add up to make Phonexa, in my opinion, an extremely versatile healer. Good heal straight up, which is always important, but then many, many useful little things that can go unnoticed, but yeah, make her number 5. Number 4, we have Vanya. He is a slow Garrison Guard hero, but has a humongous 54% heal. That's why, even being slow, I've thrown him in the list. He does have the Mega Minion, and as we know, Mega Minions are quite good in the current meta. The Mega Minion also gives an ongoing cleanse, so each turn that Mega Minion is there, it will cleanse all those ailments. Uh, there can be a slight disadvantage in not having the upfront cleanse. However, the fact he continues to cleanse means it does give you ongoing protection, and we know the Mega Minions generally do survive for a while. He resists mana down, so that helps with his slow speed. He does also get a little bit of mana if he gets an ailment thrown on him, so that can help him get up there in speed. And yeah, also as a Garrison Guard, has the extreme bonus of removing Wither. So anytime you're going against those Wither heroes, we know there aren't a lot of heroes in the game that remove Wither, so that's just a handy thing to have. Again, these healers depend on attack/defense. Are you taking them in an attacking team? Are you using them on your defense? But given the huge heal, I find it very hard to overlook. Plus, he does an awful lot of extra. The Mega Minion makes him very hard to kill. So, obviously with the healers, you're wanting to target them sometimes to get them out of the battle. He has the extra health of that Mega Minion, so makes him harder to target to get rid of, giving him more chance to then get more heals off. And just has all that extra stuff going on. So anyone who watches regularly knows I'm not generally a huge fan of slow heroes, but they are becoming more and more relevant, I believe, especially with the legendary troops, things like that, giving the extra high HP that can keep people alive. Something else I will also mention, or I'll show some examples of later on, the difference between a heal, especially a percentage heal, and the effect that has on a hero that has a legendary troop that may have an extra sort of 12 to 1500 HP, as opposed to boosting those heroes. So I'll give some examples later on. Keep an eye out for that, just to show you the difference that some of these things can make, and give you scenarios where that may mean that one healer is better than another, and things like that. Vanya, obviously fantastic if you're pairing with other Mega Minion heroes as well, other Garrison Guard. Those Mega Minions can just make a huge difference, even in an attacking point of view. Again, different scenarios for different healers. I'm trying to give examples of, if you've got other certain heroes, maybe this healer may be better than the healer that's at number 2. So just keep all these things in mind, but we will now move on to the top 3. First on the podium, we have Revner at number 3. I have seen some interesting discussions around lately and heard about some other extremely entertaining discussions/arguments around Revner and Hathor. I haven't got to Hathor yet, but fear not, she's in the list. And yeah, there's interesting reasons on both sides. Revner is fast, gives a 35% heal, so slightly smaller than a couple of the ones we've looked at, but that fast speed can make a lot of difference. She has great secondary skills of reflecting ailments and reflecting Wither back to the opposing team for 4 turns to a random character. It is a good distinction to make. I know there's been heroes like Hawthorne who reflect back to only the caster. So when it reflects back to random, it's fantastic because you can affect, 3-4 people at the same time. Excuse me. So that's fantastic. It also reflects the Wither back, which is a great skill. Again, depending on whether you're offense or defense. If you see Revner on defense, you just wouldn't take anyone with Wither. So therefore, some of the skills can become nullified, which is fine. That happens with every hero. There's counters to everyone. Does have a slightly dodgy bit where it also cleanses 1 ailment from all allies, which is just the latest cleansable ailment. I'm not a huge fan of that sort of stuff, especially if you're throwing the reflect up. Why not get rid of all of them? But it is what it is. Would probably be a little bit overpowered, to be honest, if it did also do a full cleanse. But yeah, definitely if you're going against someone that just has one ailment, that's fine, it's going to get rid of it. So it can be just as useful in some scenarios if you don't have multiple ailments. So a couple of little extra passives, which I won't go into too much, but has a 10% chance, I believe, the same as the other, some of the Monster Island heroes, to drop the damage down to 1 from a special skill, which is awesome. I have Hawthorne. I've used Hawthorne for a long time, who has that. And it just comes in so handy sometimes. And also puts a little hunter's mark on the enemy, which gives a little bit of damage. That doesn't do a great deal, but it's better than not having any damage at all, I guess. So it can stack, but rarely do you get many stacks of that. So yeah, very good hero. Number 3, again, on these lists, different day of the week, I could have these numbers totally switched around. I don't personally have Revner, and that can also play into it. You only come up against it every now and then, and you can't see 100% of how useful it is if you don't have the hero yourself. But generally, you can still tell. But yeah, sometimes just having the hero makes you a little more fond of them and a little more appreciative of the stats. But definitely a fantastic healer. If you're getting Revner, get it leveled straight away. There's not a great, as we've seen in the list, there's not a heap of great newer red healers especially. So Revner is quite new and definitely worthy of a spot. Could have been anywhere in the top 3, to be honest, but today is number 3. Number 2, dramatic pause. We have Hathor. Well, costume Hathor, but then non-costumed version of costume Hathor. This will probably get a lot of hate or feedback or whatever. I have mentioned many times that the list is dependent, the actual numbers, on scenarios, etc. A lot of people will think costume Hathor is the best red healer, and that could well be true. We'll run through. So we need the costume version, 1 for the extra costume stats, but also because the costume then gives a 100% chance for the secondary 10% boosted health to go off. The original version only has a 50% chance of getting that extra boost. So that's why we need the costume. But then the costume version actually gives a boost over time of 640, which I believe is too small. It doesn't do enough up front and can easily be sort of overcome. So that's why you need the costume. But then I prefer the non-costume version. I hope that makes sense. It's as clear as bloody mud. 480 boost, fast speed, extra 10% boosted health, gives ailment protection, and also gives a small amount of mana. So that's why a lot of people would have Hathor number 1 once the costume is available. I will mention fast speed. So we've seen a Revner at number 3, I believe, was also fast speed. The reason those fast speed heroes are great is they can charge in 7 tiles. So it means if you get a Dragon Bomb and then a match of 3, or even if there's a Dragon Bomb next to 1 single red tile and you've got 2 other red matches, it can give you your 7 tiles. And in Hathor's case, with that mana boost, that can then get the average speed heroes charged as well, depending on all the nodes and all the different troops and all that sort of thing. But that's why Hathor is seen as such a huge advantage, and that's fantastic. However, the reason I've got Hathor number 2 rather than number 1 is because I feel that for the average player who's not 100% going into absolutely everything with the mana nodes and the troops and having this hero with that hero, you're generally going to need those 9 tiles anyway to get an average hero charge. So the amount of times that it will happen in 7, yes, it happens. I'm not saying it doesn't, or 8. But I feel, depending on who else you're then pairing with, if you're pairing it with other fast heroes, then they're going to be charged anyway. So the mana boost becomes a little bit of it's a nice little bonus to get their next charge started, but you don't need it to get all your heroes charged. If you are pairing it with average speed, then the amount of times getting that 7 tiles is going to happen and then get your other heroes charged, if that all makes sense, to me, isn't going to be that many scenarios where it's going to happen. I know it happens. People are going to argue, yes, it happens this amount, it happens that amount. But in my opinion, for the people, most people that are playing, getting the 9 tiles is going to be fine. So the fast speed and that mana boost, I don't rate as highly as the extra heal. The armor protection is great, but it doesn't get rid of anything that's already on. So again, it's not much protection if someone's got a nasty ailment and they've already hit you with it. It's fantastic for getting it up first. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Hathor is not a great hero. I will just show some examples, though, after I show my number 1 of the difference in percentage heals and boost. Now, keep in mind, Hathor does have the extra 10% boosted health, which is guaranteed once you get the costume version. So that does help a little bit. But in the current meta, the 480 boost, I feel, is a little bit low, even with 10% extra. I feel a lot of people rate Hathor so much higher because of the great partnership she had with the Costume Jiao Chan, when Costume Jiao Chan was an absolute beast. But why that worked is because Costume Jiao Chan, as tank, was giving the heal, getting everyone back up to 100% basically, throwing a minion on there, which was beefy as all heck. One of Costume Jiao Chan's weaknesses was there's no cleanse, there's no ailment protection. So having Hathor next to Costume Jiao Chan then gave the extra boost on top of being at full health and had the minion for protection, and would also then give the ailment protection. So I feel her status was elevated because of that. But again, by herself, I feel the heal just isn't quite there. Still absolutely amazing. Number 2, again, different day of the week, could have been number 1. I did this mainly just to annoy people. No, I know there's a few certain people out there that won't like this at all, but that's the joy of the game. It's the joy of discussion, different opinions, different play styles. But yeah, that is Costume Hathor at number 2. Now let's get into the number 1, which may be a bit of a surprise. And number 1, as you can see, is Blossom. This will be quite surprising. I have partly thrown Blossom in at number 1 as she is a little more obtainable than Hathor with the costume. She was also in the recent Soul Exchange. Absolute bargain at 10 souls. And my reasoning, now, it is a little bit outdated. The costume of Hathor does give her a bit better stats. Blossom gives a 45% heal, running at average speed. So as I've just mentioned about Hathor, I think for the majority of players, the average speed isn't that big a deal as opposed to fast. But again, I'm also extremely aware that certain players will need that fast speed to match up with the team they're making. So again, interchangeable number 1 and number 2, interchangeable top 5 to some degree, depending on the scenario, your playstyle, and your roster. I keep banging on about it, but there is no one hero is better than this hero, is better than that hero. It's nonsense. But no, you need to watch my list because it's not nonsense. Also has a Dispel, which is great. I do like my healers to have Dispel and or Cleanse. The bonus here is we get a bonus healing on Dispel. So we get 70 extra health for each Dispel up to a maximum of 560. So on top of a 45% heal, which is probably looking at around, anywhere between 1,000 and 1,300, you can then get up to an extra 560. So now you're looking at 1,800 if there's a lot of things to dispel. On top of that, we get the extra boost from the core, which when fully charged is an extra 25% boosted health. So you're looking at, as I said, the 45% heal, the extra heal if you're dispelling, and then the boost from the core. It's absolutely humongous. I'm going to show you some examples. Also gets a protection against ailments that stop her using her special, so basically a silence protection, which means she's pretty much going to go off to heal your team. And yeah, as I said, there is definitely a case for other healers to be number one, Revenant and or Hathor. But I've gone with Blossom to basically it's more accessible to the masses. Fantastic healer. Sometimes people think that the basic healers just aren't quite special enough, or for some reason they don't do enough, or they like the boost. Uh, Boost is fantastic, but the boosters are quite small. I feel boosters always work better with some type of other healer, even if it's a healer that hits, but someone to help get your health up so the boosted health can then actually kick in. Uh, that's what I'm thinking. Now, I'm just going to show you some examples of the differences between the boost and the percentage heal. So stick around to see some specifics and also to see the difference it makes when you're healing a hero with a legend troop as opposed to no legend troop, and just the difference in health that can give. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that list, but stick around for a quick summary of the healing. I do realise this video has sort of popped into a bit of a long one. I don't know how I've managed to dribble on for so long, but I just wanted to show the difference here. So here we have Hathor healing. So we can see on the left we have Farah, who has a legendary troop. You can see the HP there of 3189. And on the right we have Chang'e, who doesn't have a legendary troop. They have a very similar base HP, which was around 2250. You can see Chang'e is 2314. So about 800 less. We can see the 480, keeping in mind that some heroes do have talents and other things that will make the heal go higher. So we can see the base boost of 480 on the left. On the right, it's 566. But if we ignore that and just say that's 480 as well, the extra 10% is what I was trying to show, is the 314 on the left as opposed to the 201 on the right. So with the legendary troop, you're looking at 10%, it's around about 113 difference. So for every 10%, so if you think of some of the healers that are doing 40 or 50% healing, then you're going to get an extra 400 to 500 HP from having a legendary troop. So keep that in mind. This is also a good indication of the difference between Hathor's boost and Blossom's overall heal. For this test, I'm about to show Blossom's heal with a fully charged core, but keeping in mind Blossom is not double LBs. So Blossom is level 80, 20 emblems, whereas Hathor is costume version, double limit broken, and 20 emblems. So hope that makes sense. And now I'll move on to the Blossom example to see the difference. Just quickly, we can see that the total heal here is around about 790 to 800-ish. Now we take a look at the Blossom heal in the same scenario. On the left, without the with the legendary troop, we can see Farah gets 1455 plus 800 boost. On the right, Chang'e is getting 1190 plus 660 boost. Having said that, Chang'e does have a talent node which increases the healing a little bit. So if we do a quick sum, we're looking at sort of 2200 for Farah and around about 1700 if we take a little bit off. So it's about that 500 difference. So for every 10%, having that legendary troop is probably worth an extra 100 to 120 heal. That can make a huge difference. And we can just see in total here, the overall heal, if we add Farah up as an example, in the Hathor heal, I think Farah got around 790. You can skip back and have a quick look, but it was about 790. Here we're getting around about 2,300-ish. So that's an absolute huge difference. And if you look at Hathor herself, she's getting around about 1,800, so almost 3,000 heal. Now, again, that is with the charged core, but not double limit broken. This is why I believe, if you're looking at Farah as an example, the difference between 790 to 2,200, it's about triple. So again, it's not the same in every scenario. I'm not trying to say that one is way better than the other, but a heal of 2,200 as opposed to 790, 800, almost triple the heal. Some of it's a boost as well, which is fantastic. And then keeping in mind, that's only with one dispel happening. So if there's extra dispels, that the 70 at the bottom will go up more with the extra dispels. So, it's up to everyone else out there to decide, is a little bit of a mana boost and fast speed by Hatha, worth almost triple the heal of someone like a Blossom and Dispel. Again, this is a fantastic part of the game. It's why I enjoy having these sort of discussions, different things for different scenarios. It's not like if you've got both of these healers, you can only take one of them, or you always have to take one over the other. So I hope that little demonstration helps. I hope you enjoyed the list. As always, if you do, gently caress the subscribe button. I'm so sorry I've dribbled on for so long, but I do get excited when talking about these sort of things. Give your kitty a script for me, and have a good one.